Hello and welcome to Good Enough Fishing. I'm your host Anthony, and today we're going to be tying one of my favorite flies, which is the Parachute Adams. We're going to be tying the fly today using UTC 70 blue dun thread on a DaiRiki 305 size 16. I begin a hook eye lengths back and I lay down a base layer of thread, keeping sure that the underbody is even. I go all the way back to about the barb of the hook. Snip off or break off the tag end. Next, I grab a couple of feathers and I'm going to gather the materials for the tail. It's going to be a combination of a grizzly feather and a ginger feather laid on top of one another with the fibers preened out, grabbed together, and then pulled apart. I messed up this grab right here and I had to try it again. It happens. My hands are kind of sweaty, so. Measure the tail to be right about the hook shank in length and cut off the little curlies. Execute a pinch wrap by coming in at an angle, pinching the material and the hook shank together, and then tying it in. Use regular wraps to secure the material down to the hook shank. Right about here, my thread caught the hook tip and then it broke. Not wanting to go back and undo the tail because it was very early in the fly, I decided to go ahead and fix this issue. I rethread my bobbin using a bobbin threader to do so quickly. And I'm going to pull down the tag end of the old broken thread, and I use a technique, the same technique you would use to just go in right over the thread wraps, as if you were starting a brand new fly. Go a little bit before where the thread broke off, trim off any excess, and it's as if it never happened, because you're going to be wrapping over it so many different times, that's just going to re-secure it down. I advanced to the front of the fly after making the underbody a little bit more tapered. I'm going to use a medium dun parapost from Hairline Dubbin. It is treated by Watershed, so it's pretty flotative. That's not really a word, but oh well. And you're gonna measure about a hook shank in length, and then transfer that measurement to your tie-in point. Use just a regular pinch wrap. This stuff's really easy to work with. It's not slippery at all. Take a few wraps rearward, cut in at a 45-degree angle, and then use some more thread wraps to bind down the material. In this particular case, I don't know if I was camera shy or what, but I went a little bit too close to the hook eye. That's not that big of a deal, though. The fly ends up turning out pretty darn good. But you want to build up a thread dam right in front of it to stand the material up. Here you're going to grab with one hand and then using the other one pass the bobbin around the parachute post to put thread wraps on it and hold it together and make it stand up. This thread base on the parachute post is also going to be pertinent so that you can add your materials onto it. At some point you'll be able to make wraps like this without having to hold anything down, and that's a pretty good indication that you have a good parachute post. There's a little errant fiber there on the camera side that I can't see, but it gets covered up pretty well with the dubbing, which is the next step. I've been liking the Superfine dubbing that's Adams gray colored, and pretty simple. All you do is you just grab a small little tuft out and dub it onto the thread. and just a smallest noodle, just a little bit you can, as small as you can get on there. With the fact that the dubbing is pretty close to the same color as the thread, you want to make sure that you don't make this body thicker than it already is. I got really lucky in my measurement right here in that I was able to get it right up to the parachute post and have it stop right there without having to add or take away any dubbing. At this point, I'm going to tie in the hackle feathers using a size 16 Grizzly hackle feather that I got on eBay and a size 18 Whiting's 100 feather in brown that you see me tying in right here. Do a couple wraps before the parachute post and a couple wraps after the parachute post, and then hold it up alongside of it and use a similar method that you used to prop up the parachute post to get the feather to stand straight up. As you can see, when you don't have enough thread out there, it can jump up on the parachute post and cause some havoc, so be really careful with that. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the Grizzly hackle. Getting towards the end part of this, it's semi-difficult because you have so many materials together. The one thing to remember is that parachute posts are a lot more resilient than what they look. So you're not going to hurt them by, pushing on them or pulling them back or pulling them forward. That tag end right there is one that I did not see when I was recording it, but it's covered up quite well by this next layer of dubbing. That's kind of the nice part about these kinds of flies, is that a lot of sins can get covered up by your dubbing and by your materials. So starting there at the front, being careful to make sure that the eye of the hook is clean. You bring the dubbing back and just kind of do X motions around the parachute post to make sure that both sides are adequately covered with dubbing before bringing down your feathers. I made a small adjustment right there for the feathers. Now comes the fun part. You're going to take the feather that you tied in last, tie it in, and wrap it down first. With the Grizzly, I did just, I think, 2 or 3 wraps right there, and when you're tying it in, you want to kind of bring your thread around underneath of all of the hackle fibers very carefully. And then you bring it around kind of the middle part very carefully so it sticks straight out. Get in there with your scissors. There's a very good chance, if you're not really careful, that you're going to catch a couple errant fibers, and that's okay. More wraps here with the brown. I think that the brown really just, for me, the Grizzly hackle more so just adds body, whereas the brown adds a nice shade and just really brings the fly together. And utilize the same kind of situation on this. A good pair of scissors really goes a long way. This particular pair of scissors has a side that actually captures whatever material it is, so that I get a little bit closer cuts. I really suggest getting a good pair of scissors. Last but not least is your whip finish. So like normal, but you're going to, of course, put the plane around, horizontally instead of vertically. And once again, being really careful to get underneath of all of the fibers. And that's exactly why I choose the more dun colored, because to me it blends in a lot better than the black does. Go ahead and cut it off, make a few adjustments, and you've just tied a parachute Adams fly. When I'm finished with my flies, I like to put them on a styrofoam coffee cup for safekeeping. Anyway, please like and subscribe, and leave me some love and ask me some questions. Hope you enjoyed watching.